Hello, everybody. It's Lori White once again from the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to episode number 94 of Chamber TV. And today we're talking about all things career related. And who knows, now might just be the perfect time to pivot yourself and your career and really think through, what makes you passionate and how do you want to spend the rest of your life. So we have a lot of really interesting conversation on deck, and we have an expert who is going to talk us through the most important platform for connecting talent, both from an employer perspective, recruiter perspective, and also from a candidate expected perspective. And that platform, of course, is LinkedIn. Everybody knows it. Everybody's been there. Everybody's connected and linked. But there are ways that you can use LinkedIn to really get a super big advantage over the rest of the field if you know a few tips and tricks. So that's what we're talking about today. And our guest is Kaydi McQuade, and Kaydi is the relationship manager with Back Pocket Resources. And she's an expert recruiter, and she knows all the ins and outs of LinkedIn and what it takes today to get your profile to the top of the stack. So Kaydi, welcome. It's so great to see you today.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
So we are live on Facebook. We are live on Twitter. We are live on YouTube. We have a great audience that's out there listening to us, and no doubt, Kaydi, hanging on your every word because, as I mentioned, I know so many people that are rethinking their own lives, and this session, no doubt, will be a great way to, start to put that plan in action. So, folks are invited to put comments, questions to Kaydi in the chat box. We will be monitoring the chat box, and after her brief presentation, we will take your questions. We will respond to observations that you might have, and we will make sure that you leave here with a firm action plan as to what you need to do for next steps. But before Kaydi starts to present, I thought it'd be really interesting and sort of fun just to get the engagement going by posing a question at the top end of our broadcast here. And I'm going to pose the question, and Kaydi, maybe at the end of your presentation, you can answer it for yourself, but folks can also be thinking about it, and I'd be curious to see what you put in the chat box. But here's my question for the day. From a career perspective, what adjustment would you have made at the start of 2020 if you knew then what you know now? So what one career adjustment, personal adjustment, would you have made at the start of 2020 if you knew then what you know now? So let me turn it over to Kaydi, and we can start our discussion. So Kaydi, welcome again.
Well, thank you. And I'm very excited to be here today talking about how to optimize your LinkedIn profile. It is such a powerful tool, both for employers and for candidates, employees. You may not be looking for work right now. You may not be looking to make a change. There have been enough changes in 2020. I love that word that you used, Lori, pivot. I've been trying to think of this year as just being one gigantic pivot. We don't really know what we're pivoting towards, but we are definitely making a whole lot of changes. And by setting up your LinkedIn profile, you put yourself in a good position where whether you decide to make changes or not, it can add credibility, it can add professional standing, and it can make you look your best. And that's really what this is about. Whether or not you're looking to make a change, whether or not you're looking for board opportunities or volunteer opportunities, or just looking to meet new folks since we can't go to networking events in person anymore. So just a quick interview. A quick introduction. My name is Kaydi McQuade. I work with Back Pocket Resources. We are a company that is focused on helping companies to deal with their people problems, whether that is onboarding and staffing new folks in, whether that's coming up with evaluation or training systems in place, or unfortunately, sometimes creating accountability and progressive improvement plans. We can work with companies to help you develop all those systems. And one of the biggest tools that we use is LinkedIn. I spend most of my professional life on LinkedIn. So there are just a variety of really powerful tools built into the system that really will help you to make the best of yourself. So because technology is what it is, I just grabbed screenshots of my own LinkedIn profile, so we didn't have to have a live broadcast where we were relying on LinkedIn to show up and act nice and play nice. They have very recently changed the interface just a little bit. So as you're looking at your own profile, you'll notice some of these things that look like boxes on the screenshots are now ovals. They're a little bit different, but I have checked all the buttons are in the same place, and everything I'm going to go through with you today is still accurate. So just at the top of your profile, you'll notice I have an outlaw, be an outlaw banner on the back. That's my company. You can choose to put a landscape, you can choose something else, but that just plain blue banner that comes naturally is kind of boring. And you can see there's a little edit button in the top right-hand corner. You can go in there, pop in whatever you like instead. I'll also point out the profile picture. It should be a picture just of you. I chose to do half my body, but you could do just your head and shoulders. You can do just your face. That is a good way to show who you are. And you want to have a grabber at the top. Mine says founder, relationship builder, and thought leader. You can have your job title. You can have some information about yourself, what your passions are. And underneath that, I have mine as being in Lincoln, Rhode Island, the location. You can be more general. You could say just Rhode Island or Massachusetts. You could say greater Boston area, greater Providence area, or you can have the town or city you live in. It is important to have your location. Otherwise, you may be fielding calls from people looking for someone to work in Topeka, Kansas. If that's something you're looking for, great. But if you're not, you want to make it as specific as you feel comfortable so that you can have the information that you're interested in come to you. There is an add profile section button there in blue. That is a place where you can decide what pieces of your LinkedIn profile show. You can play around in there and select to make things active or inactive as you choose. Underneath that, in a dashed line, it says, show recruiters you're open to work. You control who sees this, get started. That is the open to work section. So if you are actively searching for a new job, if you are just open to hearing about opportunities, if you are looking for board or volunteer positions, you can make your profile say that, and it will pop you to the top of searches when people are looking for folks that are in that situation. You can control what you share, right? But there's not a whole lot of point to having a profile if you're not sharing information that can help people understand who you are. You don't need to tell about your personal life and finances on this platform at all. You shouldn't. But you do want to tell who you are professionally, what you're looking for, where you are, how people can reach you. There's a contact information tab. You should have at least an email address in there so that people can reach out to you. You don't necessarily have to put your phone number. And you can control if it's only first degree connections, the people that you've already accepted a connection request with that can see that, or if anyone can see it. On the next screen, Mike, if you would please, just a couple of quick notes. These are just two different views of the top of the screen. You can notice right at the top, my URL is linkedin.com/in/Kaydi. My name is spelled unusually, which makes it really easy for me to have a very simple URL like that. The automatic one that you're going to be given is going to be like a gobbledygook of letters and numbers, but you can often change it. You may not be able to change it to John Smith if that's your name, but you may be able to change it to something that is legible to human beings rather than computers. If, it just shows you're paying attention. This is above the profile picture on the top of it. There is on the top right-hand corner, you can see edit public profile and URL. That's where you would go in to change your URL, to change what gets shown in public. That bottom half of the screen there is the public profile settings tab, and it'll let you decide what gets shown, what gets hidden, what stays public, what stays somewhat public. It lets you control things. So back into the actual profile, as we scroll down from that initial introduction with your picture, is the About section. The About section is a place where you can tell your story. That's on the next slide. It can give some hints what you're looking for. So if you are in the market for board membership, right? That's where you can say, you know, I'm passionate about animals and the environment, and I'd love to find a board where I can support that. Or I'm looking for a new role in this, or I'm ready to take the next steps in my leadership journey as a professional, looking for a management position, whatever it is you want to tell. The featured section, which I have turned on my profile, is a place where you can brag about yourself. If you've received a new certification or a diploma of some sort, if you have recently had a speakership, or if you've made blog posts, those are all valuable things to share with people if you feel comfortable sharing them. So you can put it in a feature. It's almost like a headlines. It's like, hey, check this out. Moving down, as you scroll down through your profile, you will come to the activity section. And the activity section is what you have been up to on LinkedIn. You can choose to show this or hide this. You can see that on there, it's different things that I've commented on, different things that I've shared. It lets people see what your activity level is. You can also hide that. It's not that important. The next section down is the really important one, the experience. That's where you're telling, you know, who you are, what you're doing. So we'll take a slightly more in-depth look at that. The experience, it's basically like your resume, right? It's in reverse chronological order. And again, that's the next slide. Sorry, Mike. It shows your career progression, right? How you've moved up through your roles, where you've come from different companies, if you've added different skills over the years. Now, what I see all the time is where people will count on the fact that it says see more and it clips it and say, oh, well, I'll just put in 1 or 2 lines so that it only shows what I wanted to show. You should still have full descriptions like you would on your resume, and you can do them as bulleted lists, or you can do them as a narrative. Either one is fine, but everything in there is searchable. And when we get a little bit further in the presentation, we'll look at the search tools. Even if it's not showing, right, where people would have to click see more in order to be able to see all of the details in there, any details that you put in there are searchable. So if you are in finance and you are doing various close operations, you would want to have all of that information in there, even if it's not the part that shows immediately when people just open up your experience section, because it is searchable. So you would be able to find somebody with those skills as a recruiter or as an employer, HR department, talent acquisition. Anytime you're looking for someone, you're going to be looking for specific skill sets, and those should be listed in there to make that make sense. I feel like I'm throwing a lot out there. I don't know if there's any questions coming in. I just want to pause for a second, Lori, and maybe see if there's anything that we need to address or that is not clear that I've gone over so far.
Jackie wants to know, is it best to have personal email or work email address listed?
You could do either, and it sort of depends on your comfort level. If you are actively looking for a new job, that may not be a hand of cards that you want to show at your current job. And remember, if you are job hunting because you believe your job is in any kind of jeopardy, that's not necessarily the email that you want to be given out, because if you do get furloughed or laid off or let go, you won't have access to that email anymore. Personally, I use Kaydykins for a lot of things, which is not an email address that I like to give out on my professional level. So I do have like my sort of personal professional email that is just my name at gmail.com. It's sort of like an intermediary. So it's a good idea to make sure that you control the email address account that you're giving out, because people might not get in touch with you today. They may just, save your profile or store your information for future reference, in which case you want to make sure that they can still get in touch with you.
Well, that's a great answer, and one that I was wondering also. Kind of tied to that, Katie, is the notion of, if you are very overt about the fact that you are open to new job possibilities, what would your current employer think of that?
So it depends on the situation and the rationale for that. I know a lot of times people, if they are in either a contracted position or an internship, or they've completed a new level of degree, but there's no place for them to move within their existing organization, those are situations in which your boss, your manager, whoever you're reporting to, might be fully team, hey, let's get you a new job, right? There are other situations where, you like, especially this year where things have been kind of dodgy. I know that that was a question that came up when a lot of people were furloughed back in the spring. They said, what does it look like if I start looking for a new job, if I get really active in my search now? And in that case, you may have loyalty to your employer, but you also have to look out for what's best for you and for your family and for your future, right? If they've furloughed you now and you have every reason to believe that you're coming back and it's no problem, like, okay, maybe then you want to keep your job search a little bit more subtle if you elect to go on one. But if you have questions in your head, or if it's been expressed to you that there's a possibility that you're not coming back at the end of this, or that if things don't change, they won't be able to bring the whole team back, I think most people would understand that you would want to do some searching and just protect yourself. If you are in a situation where you feel like you might be, for want of a better word, like blindsiding your company if you were to resign, then you probably want to be a little bit quieter about it. And the only reason I could think of why you would want to do that is if just the communication internally is part of the reason why you're leaving. Because I do often think it's a good idea to have some open lines of communication. Whether you're looking for a new job is not necessarily the thing that you want to share openly. But there is in that open to work section or open to opportunity section, you can have there's different levels of it. So there's like actively open to work, where I'm looking for a job. That's really best for people who have already been laid off, or who are wrapping up a contract position, or some other thing where there's a clear end date to the work that they're doing right now. Then there's open to opportunities, like, hey, let me know what you maybe I'm interested in the opportunity that you have, right? You never know, like somebody could be coming to you with a job making twice as much money with half the commute, if we ever start commuting again. You want to hear about it, right? And you'd be kind of crazy not to. So you kind of have to feel it out. But the good thing is, it's not like when you post a job change or a career move where it like automatically gets blasted out and comes into people's notifications who are connected with you, and it says like, oh, congratulate Kaydi on her promotion to blah blah, right? It's a subtle thing. It doesn't blast out to the world like, oh, I'm looking for work. So if your supervisor would be like looking on your LinkedIn profile and you think they're going to notice day to day that it went from nothing in your profile to open to opportunities, blame me. Oh, I went to the Greater Providence Chambers, optimizing LinkedIn profile, and they said that's a great way to make myself searchable.
I love that. So yeah, we have a few more questions coming in, but at this point, why don't you just continue to present, and we'll sprinkle in the questions as we go along.
Sounds perfect. So on the next slide, moving further down your profile is your education section. Education should absolutely be up to date. It should list any degrees you've attained, any information that you have. You don't have to put dates on. I do, but it's not necessary. I know that there's sometimes concerns about age discrimination, in which case, you don't necessarily need to give those obvious markers. But you do want to have what your degrees are, which institutions you've gone to, because there are affiliate groups for different alumni associations, and someone may reach out to you, someone may reach out to me because I am an alum of Plymouth State University. Hasn't happened yet, but if you've got maybe not the state universities, I don't know. And then the next section going down is the volunteer experience. This is one that's a good one to turn on if you are an active volunteer. If the volunteering that you do is something that's close to your heart or something that you really would like people to know about, that you're really happy talking about. If the last time you did a single day of volunteering was 10 years ago, mute this section. Don't have this out. This is not gonna help you in your job search. But it is definitely a nice way to communicate something about your values and what's important to you. The next section down is one that I want to be very clear about. This is skills and endorsements. And you can see at the top right-hand side, it says add a new skill. You get to add the skills. You get to choose which things that you think you're really good at, and you get to order them within there, what you think you want those top 3 to be, right? However, unless you ask people to endorse you, it is very rare that people will go onto your website and go, oh, Kaydi's really fantastic at staff augmentation. Let me click on that and give her a high rating for that. It's way more common that people just sort of scroll through it. Where it's good, especially if you have specific technical skills, specific knowledge skills, specific traits or qualities that you want to make sure are emphasized. So I can't tell you how often we were looking for people who have experience with a particular software package, for example, and seeing that in the skills and seeing that emphasized by some of their former colleagues. That's just such a great way to understand that this is actually something that this person really does and they do well. And it's not something that they've just added to fluff their resume when they're applying for a job using that particular software. This is also a nice way to offer a little value to your friends and colleagues, where you can go onto their LinkedIn profiles and very easily, offering an endorsement for someone to have a particular skill takes maybe 30 seconds. It's really just that simple. And it's a great way to give somebody else credibility. Same thing, just ask for it yourself. You can just send a little note that says, hey, would you be willing to endorse me for leadership? And they may ignore you or they may actually do it. And below that, recommendations. Also fabulous, takes a little bit more time, but still not a whole lot. It's not like writing a reference letter or answering a reference call. If you are posting the recommendations that you have in there, you really would like to make sure that they're up to date, that they reflect more than one experience or level of seniority within your organization. So if you are at a management level, you may want to ask someone senior to you in the organization, and also maybe someone that you've managed, right? Somebody who's on your team, if they would give you a recommendation. You want to make sure that unless you've spent 20 years at the same role in the same company, you want to make sure that they're coming from different organizations that you've worked with. It just shows a breadth of experience. And you can also give these. There's an ask for recommendation button, or you can send a personal email or in-mail, which is the messaging system within LinkedIn. The next slide is sort of the hidden magic, right? This is from LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a specific upgrade program. There's LinkedIn Premium and a couple of different packages that you can get. LinkedIn Recruiter is the one that is used by staffing firms, talent acquisition, HR departments, anyone who's looking for talent frequently. And this is just the blank new search page, right? So if I go to create a new search, this is what I see. That top left corner, more likely to engage, that's where, open to work, open to opportunities, those sorts of things. You'll see people that are in your network, people that have responded to you in the past, that sort of stuff. Every section on this page can be expanded out and used as a search tool. And you can also do a Boolean search where you're looking at several different factors, right? So you may be looking at, job title, years of experience, geographic location, companies that they may have worked at, or in the past, whatever the search string is. So for example, I did a search for a data analyst with strong SQL development skills within 10 miles of the 02860 zip code that have experience in electrical manufacturing. I found 2 candidates. So guess who the first 2 calls are that I'm going to make, right? Now, when I, as a recruiter, click on those candidates, there's a further tab that comes up that has similar profiles. Those are the next round of calls that I'm going to make, right? The people that satisfy every bit of a search string. Then I'll go to more general searches, right? Then I'll go, okay, well, maybe a wider geographic area, or maybe they don't have to have electrical engineering, or they, could have maybe light manufacturing because there's overlap. That's where you get into that. But if somebody is looking for somebody really specific for a role, you want to make sure that you have the information in your profile so that they'll find you, right? If you are looking to be found. Even if you're not actively looking for a position, this matters to you, right? Again, somebody might be reaching out with a position that's, twice your salary at your dream job that you didn't even think you wanted to make a move for. But you also could get reached out to for your network, right? Somebody may say, hey, I noticed that you would be the perfect candidate for this role, or the perfect candidate for this role may be somebody that you've supervised in the past. Could you connect me with someone else? People will remember if you are referring them for roles. People will remember if you are networking them to recruiters. You will gain a lot of loyalty and a lot of credibility as a manager, as someone who helps people, or even as a colleague who is willing to help out. There's something kooky in the LinkedIn algorithm. So if you get those notes from recruiters that say like, hey, I came across your profile looking for somebody for this role with this company, let's chat. Or an internal recruiter and say, hey, I'm with company ABC and I thought you'd be perfect as an XYZ for us. We're looking to hire right now. And it's not the right time. It's not the right opportunity. It's not the right role. There's a temptation to click. There's an auto response that says, decline. For some reason in LinkedIn's profile, if you decline, that person can never reach out to you again. So if you're thinking to yourself, company ABC is really interesting. I've been hearing a lot about them. I know they're a big player in the local market, but I just got this new promotion and I really feel like I want to ride it out for at least a year in my new job. Don't hit that auto decline because that person won't be able to reach out to you again. Just, no thanks and ignore it, whatever, however you want to approach it. But don't do it. If you're getting a garbage email from somebody who's like building off of the job you had in, a summer job in high school and they picked up on that and they said, no, I think you'll be perfect for that thing you did 25 years ago. All right, that, you can safely ignore that, right? But if it's a real opportunity with a real organization that you may want to have some relationship with, don't click the auto decline, just click, reply no thank you or not at this time. I hope that makes sense. So the next slide is your homework, because I used to teach, I can't leave any sort of an opportunity without assigning homework. And this is what I hope that you take. If you take nothing else from this workshop, please take a look at these things, right? These are things that your profile should have. Your profile should have a good photo and some sort of banner, even if it's just a generic ocean picture or a skyline, whatever, some pretty picture you took on a hike sometime. Anything other than that, just plain blue strip that automatically comes there. And then the rest of it really has to do with how would somebody find you? What is the point of having your LinkedIn profile, right? It's not Facebook, it's not Instagram, it's not TikTok. It is a professional networking social media. And you should treat it that way, right? So you basically want to give out the information that you would give on your business card. If you went to a networking event, if you were trying to get someone to notice you, how would they find you? How would they know who you are? And this is a totally good phone a friend sort of an opportunity, right? This is where you can call in help and say like, hey, will you take a look at my profile and see if it actually tells you anything about me? Because it may not, or it may actually be a really good way to get to know you. You want to make sure that you've got at least your email for your contact information, physical location as specific or general as you want. But if it just says United States, it's virtually useless, because who's going to find you, right? If they don't even know the region of the country that you're in. You want to make sure that you have updated your job titles, descriptions, any relevant keywords that you use. Remember that the way a job is described in one company may not be the way the same job is described in other companies. So just having your job title there sometimes doesn't give anyone enough to go on. Different industries will use the same title. Like a great example of that is project manager, which means something totally different in IT than it does in construction, but it's the same job title. You want to make sure that your job title and keywords are there, so that we can figure out, like, is the project that you're managing building a new high school for the town, or is it implementing a new software package? You want to make sure that your skills section is curated, right? Whatever you think your top skills are, whatever you'd like folks to learn about you, put those in there and then ask for endorsements. You want to make sure that your education and relevant certifications are there. Make sure that you have connections, right? Connections don't need to be best friends, people that you've known forever. In fact, if they're not in your industry, it may not be best to have, your high school buddy or whatever. You want to have folks that you've worked with in the past, folks that you'd like to work with in the future, folks that you've met at networking events like this, other people that you've met through chamber events or professional developments, things that if you've gone through a certification program, anyone that you met in there, and just connect with them. In the bottom there, do not add skills that you don't possess or inappropriate content. And inappropriate content, like, we're all adults. I don't have to tell you about like super inappropriate content, but like, for example, you sometimes come across somebody's profile and they're all like, yay, Patriots, Pats this, Pats that, Pats the other thing. If they're in sports management or they're doing the events industry type of a role, something to do with where sports are actually central to their job, okay, cool. That totally makes sense. If it's just a personal passion and they love watching football and they're excited about the Patriots, like, that's Facebook, that's Instagram, that is not LinkedIn, unless it is part of your professional journey, either as an opportunity that you've had for work or for volunteer or for some sort of an outreach situation. It's not the right place. And then, the immediate impression is like, is this the guy that's going to come in and sit here on, Tuesday morning and spend the entire morning talking about the game last night rather than actually doing their work? So inappropriate content is inappropriate in a professional setting. And also inappropriate in any other social setting. Like, I don't mean that's okay to put on. So that is your homework. Take it over the next, it doesn't have to be that you sit down and block out an hour a day for the next month, right? But definitely get in there, start sending notes, have a little bit of an idea of where you want to take it. Maybe ask somebody to take a nice picture of you in front of a blank wall or a pretty landscape or something, so that you have a picture just of you, not where you've cut your significant other out of a group picture. And just make sure that your profile is communicating what you want to communicate to the people that you want to be communicating with. And that's sort of the big takeaway here. I want to thank you all for participating in the training. I have my contact information. I know it's been running across the ticker at the bottom. And I want to emphasize, like, I can't tell you how often I've talked with people and I've said, really your LinkedIn profile is a mess. You need to update it. And they'll say, oh God, not another social media thing. I don't want to. And then, when they finally, get to the wall where their applications aren't getting anywhere, and they update their profile and they make it look a little bit better, and because it is the first thing that people are going to check. If you mail me a resume, I'm still going to go look at your LinkedIn profile. So you want to make sure it's up to date. It is a really robust tool for furthering your career, and I hope you take advantage of it.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was amazing. I loved it. So just to remind everybody, we are talking with Kaydi McQuade. She is the founder and thought leader of Back Pocket Resources. And in a minute, Katie, I'm going to ask you about your firm and how it is that you determined that that was your passion in life. But just want to remind folks that we are taking questions. Just put your questions in the chat box. And also, I was looking for some engagement with everybody that's watching. I know we have more than 100 people that have signed up to watch this. So I'm wondering, and Katie and I are going to talk about this too, what one career adjustment would you have made at the start of 2020 if you knew then what you know now? So let's get some conversation and some interactivity going. But while you're thinking about that, let me just circle back, Katie, and ask you, tell us about Back Pocket Resources. And as the founder, what did you have in mind?
So Back Pocket Resources was founded originally as a relationship-driven staffing organization. We were working with enterprise-scale clients, specifically on IT positions, staffing for IT positions around analytics, business intelligence, data science, those roles that often fit in between, because in one company that position may be in a marketing department, in another company it may be in a finance department. Actually, even within the same company, there may be data scientists in different departments, and they're tough roles because they're very technical, but they're also generally need to be pretty business aware and pretty people oriented. And what we were finding in doing 10,000 small businesses, in networking with the chambers and local networking groups, is that we were building these wonderful relationships with small and medium-sized businesses who don't typically use staffing services. They're too expensive, they hire too infrequently, and so they were developing their own internal systems. The way that we've done a pivot because of the pandemic is we've shifted our delivery model so that we are servicing those small and medium-sized businesses. And the way that we're doing that is to work with them very closely to understand where their pain points are, where those people problems are keeping them up at night, where they're struggling to get the right folks in the right teams or the right evaluation systems in place to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to be doing and accountable for the work that needs to happen. And then helping to build the systems so that they internally build up their capacity to do the hiring and training and evaluation work that they need to do. So it's been really exciting. I think I mentioned in this talk, I have a master's in education. I taught middle school for 12 years before becoming a recruiter. That was my husband's experience led us to found this company, and then he trained me in staffing. But I brought all the education and the pedagogy and have been able to develop all these programs where we do trainings. Some are like this, where it's just a list of tips and tactics, and some of the trainings are where we really pull apart, say your company's interviewing process and find out which questions you're asking, what you're hoping to get out of that, how are you, finding the information that you need to find, and role play those different roles or those different conversations so that we can get to where you have an effective interview process, so that the next time you're trying to bring someone on, that you're finding out who they really are and where they fit into your organization before they show up on the first day and they don't fit. So it's been a really interesting pivot and a lot of fun working with small businesses to solve those people problems.
So you're talking about the banner. So I'm curious about your banner that says "Be an Outlaw."
Mm-hmm. So that was a branding decision that we've made. The folks that we like to talk with are the folks that have been doing things and they're not working. And instead of just saying, well, but that's the way we always did it, that's the way it's always been done, we want to find those outlaws, right? And it's the outlaw in the very traditional term of Old English law, where you would live outside of the law. You would not be subject to the rules that apply to other people because you're approaching things differently. And there's only so much any consultant, any company, anyone could do if people are not willing to change, right? But if people are willing to try something different and to go outside of the bounds of what necessarily feels comfortable or what we've always done or how it's always been, then you can really get to this unbelievable change point, this pivot.
That's great. And Cindy says, hey, thumbs up, hashtag be an outlaw. She loves that. So a couple of questions that we're getting. First up, Niyama says, awesome presentation. Secondly, wonder what your thoughts are about using and listing executive education. She says, I've done a bunch of retreats, mini MBAs at great schools, but like I'm not an alumni or alumna of any of these schools, et cetera, and don't have a real qualification. So she's, really heavy on continuing ed and, doing the certificate programs and, really embracing continuous learning. So she's wondering, how does she leverage that?
Yeah, and that's the same way you would do any other certificate, right? If you participated in a program, you completed it successfully, it's totally legitimate to put on your LinkedIn profile, right? You have that learning. You're not claiming that you have an MBA from that organization. You're claiming that you did a mini MBA retreat or you did a certification program or whatever else. So that is knowledge that you have. You may want to break down in certain circumstances, like what is the mini MBA? Was that focused in marketing? Was it focused in finance? Was it focused in just general business management? But like what was the learning from that? Just because that doesn't have the same understanding globally of what the training was. But you certainly should be adding it. It definitely shows you to be a lifelong learner. It shows you to be someone who's trying new things and interested in career progression. So I would definitely add those things. It's not going to pop up that you have an MBA from whatever the organization is. It's going to pop up that you attended that organization.
Yeah. So, just be clear and, probably if she put the dates in like, January to March, 2021, obviously you can't get an MBA in 3 months. Right. So, I've learned that sometimes inserting, the dates that you've done that or, the months, et cetera, it makes it super, super clear. So people aren't in fact misled or mistaken. Patrice has an answer to our question. She says relative to what she would have done at the start of 2020 if she knew then what she knows now. And Patrice is saying, I definitely would have updated my LinkedIn profile sooner. So that's a good answer because you never want to wait until you're behind the 8 ball, right? You always want to be ahead of the game and be proactive, right?
Yeah, and I say that all the time. I had a friend who reached out to me and she said, I keep getting, folks keep reaching out to me with these different opportunities, and she's got, like one of these, you look at her career and you're like, oh my gosh, I want you too. Come work for me. And she wasn't interested in leaving. And then when she unfortunately was laid off, she had all of those contact information from the people that had reached out to her in the previous year, and she could circle back to them and say, hey, I wasn't interested in making a move at the time that you reached out to me, but I'd love to talk with you now. You keep it in your back pocket, right? Hey, it's worth having the information at your fingertips when and if you need it. And, you hope you never need it. But if you do, or if you're ready to make a change or just to see what else is out there, it's a really good thing to have that already in place.
So I love that. You said keep it in your back pocket. Have it in your back pocket. No doubt something that you have seized on as the name of your company.
Yeah.
Very cool. Ed wants to know, is this presentation going to be available later on or to share? The answer to that, Ed, and to anybody else who's listening or watching, yes, we will be circulating the entire interview and the slide deck so you can watch it at your leisure and at your own pace. Deb wants to know, is is it appropriate when you talk about sharing your location? Should your location be where you work or where you live?
That's a really great question, Deb, and I'm glad you asked that. Sometimes what I've seen is when people are looking to move, whether they're looking to move closer to family or to make a change, a spouse might have accepted another role, and they will do things like change their physical location in LinkedIn so that they start showing up in those searches, even if they're still living where they once, where they're trying to leave. It depends how granular. I mean, I suppose if you take a plane to work 1 week on site per month and the rest of the time you're living in a totally different state, you may want to do that. But your location doesn't have to be. I have Lincoln, Rhode Island, but you don't have to be that specific. I could just as easily put Greater Providence, Rhode Island, or Providence, Rhode Island area, which are those are all toggles that exist. And that will, honestly, most of the time in a search, you're going to get like a radius around wherever you're looking. So, Lincoln, Rhode Island might even cut me out of really great opportunities in Warwick if I'm not being careful. And I'm not from Rhode Island, so I'll actually drive to Warwick without an overnight bag from Lincoln in a day, like it's nothing. Or at least I would before the pandemic. Now I don't go anywhere. So it depends how specific you want to get. If there's a huge distance, you may want to differentiate which one it is. If it's within 15 miles or so, it's not really going to matter overwhelmingly for most searching purposes.
Excellent. So Adriana has a question, and she says, I'm in sales. What is the best way to find connections for executive decision makers? And then she adds, I'm in hotels looking for companies traveling in the area.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can do the same things, right? In the top left-hand corner of your LinkedIn, when you log in and you're in the feed, there's like a search bar. And in that search bar, oh, I'm reversed in the camera. So I'm saying top left-hand, but I'm pointing to the top right-hand. Sorry. It is in the top left-hand corner. There's a search bar. And as you type in your search, you can do it the same way you would do it in Google. It's not quite as specific, but you can do hotel and whatever location you're in, and executive and CEO whatever the person, the decision maker that you're looking for. And you may have to try a couple of different search terms until you find who it is, but it will come up with 25 or 50 folks that you may want to target. Then when you click on them, that will lead to some other, similar profiles, people also searched for, I think they call it, that'll come up on the sidebar, and, just start clicking through there. Every now and again, something will come up that you're like, why is this in the, and what that is that somewhere deep in their profile, they've got something that, pings off of your search. But it should start to give you some ideas, and as you click through, you can find connections of connections. The other way to do it is if there's a specific hotel or a specific hospitality company that you're interested in targeting as a client, you can type in the name of that company. And then once you're in there, there's about the company, and then there's a people section. And as you go into the people section, that will give you like little thumbnail pictures of who's who in there. And it's everyone who lists that particular organization as the place that they work, currently and former sometimes. But it will also give you like their names and titles, and you can start to click there and then send them a note, ask for an introduction. Sometimes if you click on them, you can also go through, it'll show you who's a second degree connection, meaning who is someone that's connected to someone that you're already connected with. And then you can sometimes ask that person for an introduction. And that's a good way to get to know people. So you can really start to go down these paths where you can meet someone who's a connection of a connection of a connection, but have that more personal introduction than just sort of blasting out a spammy email that's like, who am I? So you can lean into the connections that you already have and say, hey, I noticed that you're connected with Michael Brown. Will you please introduce me to him? Most of the time, people are willing to do that.
Just wanted to do a PS from Sean McQuade. I trust you know Sean, maybe? And he wants to follow up on what we were talking about a minute ago. And he says it's also worth noting that writing about those experiences like the mini NBA and retreats is worthwhile on LinkedIn. So we were talking a minute ago with Kaydi about what else can you put in there? What else can you claim as a professional development accomplishment that isn't misleading? So he says content creation continues to put you into the algorithm. Posts and articles exist within LinkedIn. When you start writing, it gives you an opportunity to share the experience and the way you think with a broader audience. So that brings up another point of, posting and becoming known and being picked up in the algorithm as a recognized expert on a subject. Your thoughts on that, Kaydi?
Absolutely. And that is early in the presentation, we talked about that featured section. That's a great place to put those articles and posts that you put in there will automatically populate that area. But it is being active on LinkedIn makes you more active on LinkedIn. It means that you will show up in people's feeds more often. You will show up in the news that's happening locally. When you comment on other people's posts that they make that are relevant, that is a way to amplify your message and you become more visible. So it's the more active you are, the more likely you are to be seen, which is why a lot of times you'll see people who are looking for jobs, their friends and former colleagues will comment on their posts because it helps to amplify the message. The same thing works for you. So if you've just done a mini retreat, Niv, you asked about it before. If you've just done a mini retreat and you post up about it and use that @ symbol to link to the organization. So when I posted up that I was doing this talk today, I did @ Greater Providence Chamber so that it also tagged them in it. I did @ LinkedIn or #LinkedIn so that it shows up in people who are following those feeds. So it's a way to make sure that more eyeballs are getting onto the information that you're putting there and more eyeballs are getting onto your profile.
Great answer. And we have a follow-up. Niam has a follow-up question, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but she's wondering about the stigma of not having a job. She said there's been a stigma in the past, a preference to hire people who are already gainfully employed and have that as quote unquote. With the new open to work feature, when my fiance was recently out of work, he hesitated to use it because of that prejudice in the past. Do you think that has diminished in the crazy year that's 2020?
I do think, like, on a micro scale that it's not something that people are focused on right now because there have just been so many like wholesale disruptions and there's always been like a little bit of like if the economy is good and a company is doing well or is at least still in business and you've been laid off, there's always like is that actually because of performance and they just didn't want to say it, or is this year, all that is out the window. There is, entire companies, locally, I know, and nationally, entire companies and sort of entire industries just furloughed everybody in sight. And so that, I think, has taken a lot of that stigma away. The open to work functions a little differently than the open to opportunities. So open to opportunities has been there for a longer time, and that's more of a like, show me what you got, right? What do you have? What do you want to talk about? And that doesn't imply that you're currently out of work. It implies that you thinking about making a move and want to hear what is out there. So that one might be more comfortable if he's in this situation where he's nervous about putting the full open to work on. But I mean, there's a lot of rules that I would have said were pretty hard and fast right up until this year that I think are probably out the window, at least for the time being. So.
Great question, and I hope that that was helpful. Let's move on to Michael's question, and he says, as a small business owner, how should I approach the information on my personal page versus my business page? I feel like my personal page should simply direct people to my business page. Is that correct? And I haven't created a business page just yet.
So your homework before you do the stuff on your personal page, Michael, is to do your business page. And that is just because it gives your company credibility. It gives your company a presence. And again, it makes it that much more likely that it will show up. Typically what I do, especially when I'm doing like a thought leadership or a book recommendation, commenting on an article, making some sort of thing, I will often post it up as back pocket resources and then share it as Kaydi McQuade, because like so many small business owners, my personal profile and my business profile are so linked that there's not any light between them really. If you work for a company or especially for a small business, you want to create a little bit of distance, right? So somebody who's an employee, even if you're a key employee, you still want there to be presence as you personally, as well as presence as you within your organization. But as a small business owner, they are going to be pretty well linked. And I think that you want to have a robust personal page. You want to have, because, and I don't know what you do, but, if you're a dentist and you want to push everyone towards your dental practice, you still want to have all those accreditations and certifications and education background experience, all of that on your personal page, because that'll still lend a lot of credibility to yourself as the lead dentist of your practice. And then your practice would have links to you and to information about what makes the practice special. If that is, I'm just guessing what you, I don't think you're a dentist. I'm just throwing that out there as an example. But it's applicable to whatever industry you're in.
Yeah. So your point is well made. Again, if you are the leader of your organization, the founder of your organization, as you're saying, your two profiles are inextricably linked. But if that's not the case, then just, take proactive steps to define who you are as an individual. Yeah. So if you're just joining us, we are talking with Kaydi McQuade. She's the founder of Back Pocket Resources. We are talking about how to optimize your profile on LinkedIn. We are live on Twitter. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook right now. And we are open to your questions, but we only have a few minutes left. So if you are thinking about a question that you want to pose to Kaydi, let's do it right now. And while you're thinking of your question, let me just get back to my earlier question, Kaydi, that I put out in the chat, which is from a career perspective, career adjustment perspective, what would you have made in terms of adjustment at the start of 2020 if you knew then what you know now? So let's hear it.
Oh, there is so much truth to that. Hindsight is 2020 saying more than we knew, right? I think that if I had known that this year was going to be like this, I think that I would have started my pivot earlier. I think that we spent, a couple of months early on just, putting out fires, metaphorically, thank goodness, and not really focusing on like, okay, so the world is changing. How do we change with it? How do we embrace that pivot? How do we shift over our business model to make it something that is adding value in this new world? We put off a bunch of meetings at first saying, oh, well, when we can get together again, we'll do X, Y, and Z. And I think that if I had it to do over again, I would just have shifted to these digital platforms faster. I think I would have embraced the fact that this was going to be a long-term thing. Obviously, I had no way of knowing, nor did any of us, that this, I thought this was a 2-week pause in March. So, there's only so much you can predict in the world, but it has been. I know, we're juggling. Sean and I, who commented earlier, we are co-founders of this company, which a mom and pop shop is a little bit of a scary place to be when all of the family income comes from a company, particularly in sort of frightening and upheaval times. We also have children in elementary and middle school, so we've had to pivot around distance learning. So there's been so many changes, and I think I just would have embraced them a little bit faster.
Excellent advice. And, it's obvious that you have tapped into your own passion, and I can see the passion that you have for helping people and being a teacher. Your education background jumps right out, and, you can just sense that from you, that you want to convey information, you want to help people move to the next level, you want to give them something to think about and something to act on. So that's really, really, really great advice. So one more question, unless I see anything else in the chat box, but how would you say that as a small business employer, and you need to, just do a random, one-off hiring, not a super sophisticated job necessarily, but, something that has a fair amount of responsibility, and some, job requirements that aren't, super discreet or, just very, very specialized. How would you go about using LinkedIn, Kaydi, to find some good candidates, other than using a recruiter such as yourself, which of course we totally encourage people to do that. But if you just want to take the first step as a small business employer.
Absolutely. And if it makes sense, be happy to recruit for you. But the thing that I say, especially if you're talking about one of those roles that's really more about the person than about the specific skill sets that they're bringing, if you're talking about something where it's going to have to be trained because you're using your internal systems that don't necessarily have widespread adoption, or if you are looking for a role where it's not super technical, super specific. But even honestly, if it is, I always recommend that you go back and you really try to get an understanding of your company's culture. What are the values of your company? What is it that is important to your mission, to your vision for the future for your company? Not just, we're going to sell 10,000 more widgets this year than we sold last year. That's very nuts and boltsy. That's very practical. That has nothing to do with the why of your company. The why and the how is important, right? You need to understand who you are as a leader and how somebody is going to interact and how they're going to feel a part of the organization and where you're going. And then use those sort of soft skills, use those words in your job description. When you're talking about, you don't just make a list of every task that anyone could ever be expected to do, everything but the kitchen sink, and then on May 21st, you might be asked to open a jar. Like, it's just, you don't need to have that level of specificity in a job description. What you need to do is communicate who your organization is, what that person will be doing, and then, how they will be valued as part of that team. LinkedIn, you can post jobs on LinkedIn, but you can also just put it out to your network. And that's part of what you can do in your news feed, is put out a post and describe those things in clear detail. And then same thing I was suggesting before, which is on the left, your left, put in a search and put in, those skills, put in the industry that you're in or similar industries where somebody might have transferable skills. And then just start trying to find people that match that description. and obviously there's still going to be actual skills that are required of the job, right? So you're not going to convince, somebody who's had, zero time spent in finance that they should come into, an accounting role within your organization or bookkeeping role within your organization. But within that area, you can also find somebody who works in a similar way. Now you don't want everyone to be identical, right? You're not looking to get cookie cutters. Everyone's, behaves the same way. But you want somebody who can work with it. So if you are an organization that's really driven by metrics and like analytical thinking and everything is by the numbers, and you try to recruit someone in who's like a real warm fuzzy type and needs to like have a lot of human interaction throughout the course of their day, like that, it's culturally it's not going to mesh, right? Like that's not somebody who's going to feel valued. Similarly, if you are like a warm fuzzy, everyone's celebrating together, and you're trying to bring in somebody who is like very by the numbers and by the book and analytical, like or you do like a lot of celebrations and you bring in someone who's like, that doesn't feel comfortable, right? Like you need to make sure that you know who you are as an organization so you can communicate that to the person so that you're bringing in someone who's a good fit. Otherwise, there's just going to be a disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have reached the end of our time together, Kaydi, and I really thank you for this amazing run through of what we should be thinking about with our LinkedIn profile and making sure that we're keeping it up to date and that we're not ignoring it until it's too late. You should probably work on it. How often? Once a month, go back and take a look and see if there's anything else that you can, tweak.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the phase of your career. It depends on how actively things are changing in your world. But I would say, at least as often as you turn your clocks forward or back, right? At least a couple times a year, get in there and really take a look at it with fresh eyes. Ask a friend or a colleague or a former colleague to take a look at it. Like, hey, does this sound like me? Does this emphasize what you saw in my performance, in my work? Does this seem like, I'm emphasizing who I should be here? What changes should I make? Certainly anytime you complete like even one of those mini MBAs or certifications, if you do a training, even if it's through your company, get that in there. A lot of people will post up things that they're doing like on Udemy or Khan Academy. That's totally legitimate. Those are things that you have learned how to do, even though there's not like a diploma at the end of it. Anytime your job title changes or your responsibilities change, I know a lot of folks this year have taken on tasks that weren't theirs, in March that might be fully in their job description now, and just make sure that all that stuff is updated and makes sense.
Yep. So the job is to take care of you first and foremost, and don't forget to download those certifications. So if you take a course and it comes with a little certification and badge that you can post to your LinkedIn profile, all of that is really good too. Mm-hmm. So yes, this presentation will be available. Kaydi, tell folks how they can get in touch with you if they have some follow-up questions or if they want to retain your services.
Absolutely. So, look at the bottom of the screen. You can email me, Kaydi@bpresources.com, linkedin.com/in/Kaydi. Or that's my work number there, 401-526-4040. I'm at extension 102. It's a small enough company that if you call up and say Kaydi, we'll find you. We'll find me. But please do stay in touch. I think actually I'm tagged in the Greater Providence posts about this. So if you saw this on LinkedIn from where Greater Providence had posted up about this workshop, it'll be in there. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure my contact information is in the Eventbrite registration and all the different things that you do. Yep. So please do be in touch. I try to make myself as easy to find as possible.
Yep, very easy, and it will be in the show notes, everybody. And Kaydi is spelled Kaydi, in case anybody is simply listening and not looking at the ticker that we have below. So thank you again for taking us through this very valuable information in this time that we're going through. And again, what I loved about your presentation is that It was meant to give people an emotional boost and to really think about what the next steps are in their own life and the trajectory of their career. And, maybe somebody that wasn't necessarily looking for a new opportunity might say, hey, you're right. This is not my passion. Something else is, XYZ is. And, I'm going to try to experiment a little bit. And I think if they did the homework that you have assigned, that and a little bit of self-reflection and introspection, that all of these answers might start to, just really gush. And that's a great thing. So thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for lending your talents to us. Thank you, Sean, for showing up as well and telling us what your thoughts are relative to all this too. We have some comments here. Niyama says, great advice. Thank you. Michael says, thank you very much. He said you were absolutely dead on in the answer to his question.
Oh, good.
And we have another Harley also says, hey, thank you so much. Found this very enjoyable. So it's great to get feedback from folks who are listening and found that this is something that they can take with them immediately and put to work for them. So I would also add, don't delay. You're in the moment right now. You're in the groove right now. You're thinking about it. You're motivated. The dopamine's going off in your head. So don't put it on the back burner. This is really important. Take care of yourself. Put your best self forward, and you'll feel really good about it. Adriana says, "Thank you so much. I love that." So all good thoughts. So for now, thanks everybody. Thank you, Kaydi. Thank you to our chamber team. Thank you for everyone who's listening and watching and providing the feedback. And continue to watch Chamber TV for additional shows just like this one. So take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks so much.